player retention day is almost as important as auction day in our part of the world. And in spite of a disappointing World Cup exit, the IPL is as important as international cricket in our part of the world. So let's get busy talking about the big news coming through from the franchises, who's been retained, who's been released, what are the remaining purses in what promises to be a very interesting smaller auction coming up on the 23rd of December at Kochi. It's a warm welcome to Robin Uthappa, who will be on this side of the auction for the first time in his career as he continues to boost his role as an analyst on ESPN Cricket. For Robbie, good evening. And Wasim
Good
Jaffer
evening,
is here.
Raunak.
And was good evening to Wasim, who will always jump from this side of his role to potentially the other side of his role as a coach in some dugout or the other. For now, we have Wasim. So it's a very good evening to you, Wasim, as well.
Thank you, Raunak. Thank you. Hi, Robbie.
Hi, Wasim bhai.
Okay, now let's get busy, shall we? Let's start with the teams one by one, and let's start with the Mumbai Indians. We were wondering if Kieron Pollard would be retained or released, would potentially be looking at another year, maybe somewhere else to be captain, perhaps. Well, Pollard has called time on his glorious IPL career, and he's gone straight from the player dugout to the coaching staff dugout. So out he goes. In addition to a number of overseas players that underperformed last year that still played in the 11, Daniel Sams, Riley Meredith, Timal Mills all got game time. So did Fabian Allen. So that's 4 overseas players gone over there, 5 in fact. But they have traded in Jason Behrendorff. So they've got another 3 overseas players to go. And as I look at the other releases, both leg spinners released, Markande and Murugan Ashwin. And we'll just bring the actual team for you now. You could see there are still some holes to fill. Bowling was a big concern, Wasim, for this team. I'll come to that in a second, but let's just have a quick look at the Mumbai Indians side. Rohit Sharma, Ishan Kishan, Tilak Verma and Surya Kumar Yadav, you think will make up a top 4. Tim David at 5. Wonder if Tristan Stubbs will get the nod with Mark Boucher as coach. There's also Devil Brevis who can bat at the top of the order. And other than that, they'll be really worried about the fitness of both Jofra Archer and Jasprit Bumrah. Kumar Kartikeya shown in the last part of the season. Ritik Shokeen there as well as 2 young spin options that Rohit Sharma could use. But there are still some real questions about the bowling. Okay, let's talk about Pollard first up. That's the big news. Is it a surprise to anyone at all that Pollard has called time and gone straight into the Mumbai Indians dugout? Could there possibly have been a case for him to put his name into the auction and try and see if he can lead another franchise? Or Robbie, with what you know of Kieron Pollard and his relationship with Mumbai, that was never going to happen?
I don't think it was ever going to happen. I think knowing Kieron, whatever little I know of him, I know that he's big on loyalty. So I know for a fact that I'm not surprised by the fact that he's actually retired and called time on his IPL career. I think he's going to be involved in their coaching staff on some capacity, and I think I think that loyalty goes a long way for him, and I think he's. In a sense, for himself, possibly taking the right call. He could have definitely played for any other franchise and would have been definitely captaincy material for a lot of franchises, an option at that. But I think for him, clearly for him, relationships also mean something. So, which is why he's taken the call that he has. Kudos to him.
Yeah, I think fair enough. And also, you could see that Tim David clearly is the better option in that Mumbai team for that spot. There's also Tristan Stubbs. So, fair call that if he didn't want to play somewhere else, Kieron Pollard. But if you look at that team, Wasim, it's interesting. Bowling was their biggest problem last year. They could not find the ideal set of bowlers. They've let go of a lot of bowlers. No Mills, no Sams, no Meredith. If we look at the bowlers on that list, they've traded Behrendorff from RCB. There is Jofra Archer, whose fitness remains a question mark. We believe he started doing some sort of return to activity and training. Other than that, are you still concerned about Mumbai's bowling? They've also released both leg spinners in Markande and Murugan Ashwin. I wonder who they can actually go for with that remaining purse to boost their bowling.
Well, I mean, I hope that Jofra Archer is fit and up and running. If he's not available, then they are in big trouble. Bumrah, Jofra Archer, and Behrendorff can make a good fast bowling player. Akash Madhwal, I know him from Uttarakhand. He's a very good prospect. So he might get a look in. But they're very weak on the spin department. Ritik Shokeen did play a few games, but he's like an off spinner. And if they play on Wankhede, he's not gonna do much. Kumar Kartikeya had a decent game time and he did okay. But again, there's not much experience there. So they have to go really big on picking the spinners in the right manner. They can't afford to have too many foreign spinners because it doesn't leave any space there, because Tim David's going to
Yeah.
play Tristan Stubbs, Jofra Archer, Barendorf, if they play. So I don't know who's the local spinners. I mean, the Indian spinners will be available for them. So that is going to be a tricky one. But all the released players are the usual suspect. I mean, there's no surprises there. I think they must have had a quiet word with Kyron, saying that he's not the same player anymore, and obviously they don't want to leave him out and things like that. And I'm sure he must have understood as well. So I think that has happened really nicely. And now he straight went into the coaching department, which is understandable. But all other than that, I feel is pretty much expected. Riley Meredith, you might have a thing that he could have done a job. Somebody who bowls at 145 clicks, but they released him. I don't think that's much of a problem because they're going to get Jofra Archer hopefully fit and running. But spin department is something which they need to strengthen.
Okay. Is there anyone in that list, as we look at the release players, Robin, that you think they could have given one more year to? It's still a new squad. Could they have given Uthappa, say, one more year? Could they have given Murugan Ashwin one more year? Because they're clearly banking on some inexperienced or rookie spinners, if we can call Karthikeya and Ritik Shoki in that. But is there anyone in that list who you think, maybe one more year would have been worth it?
I would have definitely looked at one of the spinners for sure, either Mayank Markande or Murugan Ashwin for sure, because the Mayank Markande has also played for Mumbai before and has done fairly well for them in the past. So to let go of him was possibly something that they would have had a thought about, but it would have done them well to just have a couple of backup spinners because Karthikeya has just kind of played his first season, so nobody really knows how he performs when pressure is put back on him. And Ritik Shokeen is also a youngster coming up the ranks. I don't know, like Wasim Bhai said, I don't know how many matches he get to play at Wankhede. So keeping those things in mind would have been pretty crucial, possibly to keep a leg spinner also, just in case you needed that option. And someone who's done well for them in the past. So, definitely Mayank Markande. Jaydev Unadkat also did fairly well for them. Daniel Sams as well. Did fairly recently for them. So, but I think the fact that they got Jason Barendorf, they've let go of obviously Daniel Sams. But left arm fast bowlers actually are pretty useful in the IPL and always been one of the reasons why teams have been successful. So to have a couple of them in your squad wouldn't have been a bad idea.
All right, fair enough. Just let's move to our next team and let's talk about CSK, shall we? Interestingly, there's going to be no music as far as Bravo and Pollard are concerned because they both call time on what's been quite the career. Now I don't know if we've got confirmation if Bravo is going to do something similar with CSK like Pollard is with MI. But quite something, Robin. These two doyens of T20 cricket, stars of the IPL, champions of the IPL. I can see Robin Uthappa's name. How cool is that? We got Robin from that here. But yeah, but Bravo and Pollard both missing. I wonder what the IPL would feel like without them.
Well, it would feel different, but I definitely think that they want to make themselves a little purse rich as far as having their options concerned. They don't have too many spots to fill in that sense. They have possibly a batter and definitely an all rounder or so. And they want to keep a big purse for one of those all rounders and maybe a couple of good Indian batters. And if they can secure that fairly decently, then I think they will look to buy back DJ Bravo because he's been such an integral part of CSK, and I think the fact that we haven't heard anything about him calling time or anything of that sort, so I have a feeling that they might look to buy him back because he brings omens of experience into this squad, a lot of knowledge that he shares is a integral part of this squad as well, and has been a major part in its success as well as the franchise over the last decade or so. So for a fact that if he's in the auction, they will try to get him back once they've gotten
Okay.
him in.
Interesting. We'll wait for news on that to see if Bravo is indeed going to play on or if he's going to call time. He went at 4.4 crores, so it'll be interesting to see if looking at the other all-rounders there are, if Bravo is likely to even come back cheaper, assuming he goes into the auction. Let's have a look at that team though, Wasim. It looked like it found what their ideal 11 would be. Robin had a really good start for them last season. Towards the end of the season, once Devin Conway was fit, it looked like Conway, Ruturaj with Moeen Ali at three was the way they were sort of going. But I wonder, just with looking at those releases, Dwayne Bravo is a big one. Can they fill that role with a Dwayne Pretorius? Is that pretty much sorted? Is there room for a top order Indian batter? Robin has obviously called time on his Indian cricket career. So I wonder if Mayank Agarwal, who of course is one of the big stories going into this auction, or Manish Pandey, or any of these players would be of interest for you as you look at that team?
I
Possibly they would want to.
No, no,
Yeah,
Wasim,
Yes,
that was for
Wasim.
you.
go ahead,
Sorry,
Robin.
Yes, Wasim, please.
that was for you. Sorry.
Yeah, I mean, they would obviously, with Robin not there, they would definitely would want to fill in that spot. I don't know who they go with, whether Manish Pandey will be available, so will Mayank Agarwal, and pretty of, domestic players as well. So, their scouts must have been working. Uh, but don't know. The question mark will be on Dwayne Bravo, whether they're thinking of buying him back or they're looking at somebody else. So that is the question mark. Chris Jordan, again, one of the
Yeah.
senior most players, known to have bowled those difficult overs, and he had a pretty good World Cup as well. So a little bit surprised with that because it's going to be home and away. So those Chennai conditions might be a little bit better for Chris Jordan to bowl. I feel with ball not coming on, you don't know what you're going to get in Chennai. But somebody as experienced as Chris Jordan, they've left him out. So I don't think there's a lot. If all of their players are fit, they had problems last year with Deepak Chahar not being available and the other guys. But if everybody is available, I think this team looks pretty strong. They just need
Yeah.
to fill a couple of spots, which I'm sure they have their eyes on.
Yeah, the big story here, Robin, is the retention of Ravindra Jadeja. After much talk last year about whether he's played his last game for CSK, the handling of the captaincy saga. Now, with whatever you're at liberty to share with us on that, we can assume that marriage has been matched again, or that relationship has been repaired. And Jadeja, big player that he is likely to play a big part in CSK going forward.
Well, yeah, I definitely think so. I think given everything that's transpired over the last year or so, I think there are a few pieces that needed to be ironed out, if you could call it that. And I think a lot of that must have been done by this point in time. And I think he'll play an integral role in CSK's pursuit of the IPL this year. Having said that, the young Indian batters, they definitely need a young Indian middle order there as a backup option, at least to a Raidu or a Shivam Dubey. So you need a good Indian batter there. So who they would go to, who they would use as a reserve batter will be interesting to watch. There are I don't know how many options there are out there in domestic cricket at the moment because I haven't been following domestic cricket, but I definitely think they're looking for an all-rounder. We were talking about Dwayne Pretorius; he'll definitely play an integral role. I think we've seen a lot of Dwayne Pretorius, the bowler, but I don't think we've seen we've seen his potential as a batter at the depth he's got potential as a death batter, and I think he can do a lot of damage at the back end of the innings. So I think he will be one of those options that instead of Dwayne Bravo, they've probably gone ahead and backed Dwayne Pretorius on this. But they would definitely want a backup for that as well. They could look at the likes of Sam Curran, maybe
Yeah.
Ben Stokes, perhaps. If
I think
everyone knows that
Karan and Stokes are on everybody's wish list.
on
All 10
everyone's radar.
franchises.
Yeah,
Yeah.
but they could. Yeah, I definitely feel like those are the guys that will be the ones that will be hot properties in this IPL auction.
Just very quickly, Robin, on the type of batters we have now that the IPL is going back to the respective home venues. You know better than anyone. Chepauk is not like Bombay grounds or Bangalore grounds.
Yeah.
Would you be confident of Shivam Dubey in that middle order for the entire season? Anambati Raidu at this stage of his career playing very little cricket outside of the IPL. But are you happy with that, or would you still be a little worried about what your reserve batting is, looking at the IPL going back to the Chepauk?
I'm not necessarily concerned about Raidu because Raidu has been playing domestic cricket this season and is scoring a few runs, and he's going to play Ranji Trophy as well. There's Shubhranshu Senapati again there at that as a backup player there at the middle order. He's someone again with a lot of potential who can really he's in the same mold of Ruturaj Gaikwad. So I just think he needs a little bit more time at that top level and some exposure there. Having said that, we don't know how the wickets are going to play. They are going to be red soil wickets, and it's been relayed, I think, a year and a half ago. So a certain amount of cricket has been played there over the last year or so. I'm aware that there was an A series that happened in Chennai as well, where India A played New Zealand A. There was fairly decent scores as well. So we can hope for the wickets to be as good. If the wickets are definitely good, then you can count on Shivam Dubey to come good at home conditions. But if it's going to be different, and if the fast bowlers are going to stop and move, then it'll be a nice important challenge for Shivam to kind of overcome and be successful there and prove his mettle for sure for CSK. And if he's able to do that, CSK are the kind of people who are going to back these players for a long time. And you know for a fact that Shivam will play if he can do well, and Shivam will play for CSK for a long time for sure.
Okay. Wasim, do you sense they will still be looking at answering the Dhoni succession question just in terms of a keeper bat, if nothing else? Conway is already there. So I wonder if they'll be looking for Nicholas Puran, who's the other big release into the auction. Are they interested in somebody like Puran or some leadership quality in the form of Williamson, who's the other big release? We'll come to Sunrisers in a second, but would you be looking at that if you were CSK, a leadership stroke wicket keeping option for MS? Yeah, Wasim?
Well, I think they'll stick with Devon Conway. I feel he's the next in line. MS might look at somebody else as well. I don't know who that will be, but I feel they'll have their eyes on who's going to lead CSK after MS Dhoni. Rituraj Gaikwad could be that one because he's young. He looks somebody who captains Maharashtra as well. They might look to develop him, as a next leader, probably give him some responsibility. And I hope that Shivam Dubey, Mukesh Chaudhary, Hangarekar, and even Subhranshu Senapati, these guys, need to, have a good season. I hope these guys, obviously Mukesh Chaudhary, Dubey, and Hangarekar will get an opportunity. So does Subhranshu Senapati, because this is the last season they'll play along with MS Dhoni. So, you want them to, turn this season around, become a better player and hopefully take that CSK legacy forward. So these Indian guys, I think, need to stand up. Shivam Dubey had a few seasons under his belt, but these three guys, Hangarekar hasn't played any game, Subhranshu hasn't played, but you want these guys to, take that leap from MS Dhoni and learn, the trade and become a better player, which we have seen, with Deepak Chahar and all the other guys have developed, Ruturaj Gaikwad. You want the Indian talent to, come up in the IPL. That's what I'm looking forward to with this franchise.
All right. Yeah, I think they'll also be looking at a return of Deepak Chahar, return of Ravindra Jadeja. That's almost like two big signings for them afresh. They were without those two for a large part of the season last time around, especially Deepak Chahar. Simarjeet also had a great season. So they've got a balance purse of almost the same amount as MI, which is a little over 20 crore. Interesting to see if they put all of that for just one or two spots. Otherwise, it's a team that has most bases covered if Deepak Chahar is fit and ready to go. Right, Sunrisers Hyderabad will go into this franchise into this auction with the most or the maximum purse remaining, 42.25 crore. The big news is they've released their captain, Kane Williamson. Of course, was their number one retention last year. It led to Rashid Khan moving to the Gujarat Titans. Nicholas Puran was one of their biggest signings at 1075. So in that, they have released virtually 25 crore in that itself. Romario Shepherd was a big money signing at nearly 8 crore. So he's another big player they've released in terms of at least what they got at the auction. And 42.25 crore. Let's talk about Williamson and Puran being released and what the franchise is possibly thinking and what this means. Wasim?
Well, I mean, they probably have, thinking about, obviously they need a captain straight away who's going to lead them. They have big shoes to fill in Puran, Williamson, and even Shepherd. Shepherd hasn't played a lot of games, but that's the area they need to fill. I thought, Saurabh Dubey, a left-arm seamer, and Vishnu Vinod, I thought they never got an opportunity but been released. But there are some big players who they've released. And I don't know how they're going to fill that, who's going to be available. But they need a captain, they need a strong middle order. They've got a decent bowling, but they need to fill a lot of areas. We have seen that last year as well. They didn't have much in between. The 5, 6, 7, and Kane Williamson didn't had a very great season, nor did Nicholas Puran. They had a very strong bowling, but they didn't back it up with the batting. So I feel they need to strengthen that depending who's available. But some big shoes to fill for SRH, along with
Yeah,
finding a really good captain as well.
absolutely. What's interesting for this franchise, Robin, is it's not like there's a lot of Indian players that throw their name up or hand up that they could be captain options. As Bhuvaneshwar Kumar, that's pretty much it. I wonder if you think anyone else is captaincy material in that, where Washington Sundar, no real experienced domestic player there either. Aiden Markram is an international who you could go to, who's captain South Africa at the under 19 level, of course, but there are the perils of appointing an overseas captain. So I think a couple of questions here. Are they potentially looking at buying Williamson back for cheaper, given the significantly high amount they were retaining him for, which was 14 crores? So would they be looking at that, getting him back for less than 14? Or are they going to go all out with this balance purse and try and get two of the marquee players that we're expecting in this auction, either a Ben Stokes or a Sam Curran or Cameron Green, out of which Stokes is clearly a captaincy option? Are you expecting any? Mayank Agarwal is another captaincy option. Do you sense they'll go all out and get their captain from the auction?
Well, I definitely think they're going to go ahead and go really hard and all out for Ben Stokes. I'm going to go on a limb and say that they're going to go really hard for Ben Stokes. And if they can get Ben Stokes, if you look at their retained players, you can see that he can fit in the top three slot there and play as an opening batter as well, and something that he likes to do in T20 cricket. So you know that he and Abhishek Sharma can probably open the innings for them. Aiden Markin, Rahul Tripathi at 3, Aiden Markham at 4, Glenn Phillips at 5. And then you have your Indian all-rounders, and then they have Marco Jansen as well there, so he could play. And then they could look at they have Umran Malik, Bhuvi Kumar, and then Natarajan as their fast bowlers. So that sorts out their fast bowlers and batters for that matter. So I think they will go really, really hard for Ben Stokes. They'll go all out for him. In case they are not successful in buying him, then they might look at buying back Kane Williamson, is what I think. Because if you look at that retained squad, that's my reading of it.
Yeah, interesting. Now, would Mayank Agarwal, firstly, Wasim, Mayank being released by Punjab, let me get your reaction on that. But Mayank, is he likely to be now the most expensive Indian player at the auction, you would think? I can't think of anybody else who would command that sort of price. And second, would he fit better for Sunrisers as an opening batter and a captaincy option rather than an overseas player?
I mean, ideally, you would want an Indian captain. I mean, long term. But it makes sense to go for Mayank Agarwal as an opening batter because that's the spot which is empty. Not too sure about him being captain. I'm not convinced yet. Aiden Markram, if they don't find anybody, if Joe Root is available, I don't know. He's definitely not a captaincy material, but he can probably replace Kane Williamson. I don't think they are going to buy back Kane Williamson. Since couple of years, he's not the same player after his elbow injury. We've seen that even in this World Cup. So probably Joe Root, if he's available, because I think he can fill that shoes. Ben Stokes, I'm sure they're going to go for that. Mayank Agarwal will be an ideal, franchise for him to come in as a senior opener along with Abhishek Sharma. But I'm not too sure about Mayank Agarwal leading the side. I think if you give me the choice, I'd probably make Aiden Markram out of all the players who have they retained.
Okay, interesting. One last question before we move on from Sunrisers. The Puran release. Puran is supposed to be a in-demand player. We know what he's capable of when he has a good season. He had one for Punjab. He was bought at 1075. Now, at a small auction, Wasim, where most teams have a remaining purse of about 20 to 30 crore. There are some that have even 7 and 8. SRH have the most with 42. Can we make some kind of, just shot in the dark sort of calculation that Puran is likely to be bought back at less than 1075? Wasim?
Yeah, possibly. I mean, Puran can fill in that place and he can be a captain as well. He can be a captain. He can come in and play at that number 4 and 5 and probably buy him at lesser price than what they gave him last time. So, yeah, I mean, Puran's still a quality player. He's still a captain at West Indies and good player. And he needs to prove himself at IPL. He hasn't done that so far. He didn't had a, breakthrough season at IPL. So we might see him that, SRH might go for him and make him a captain as well.
Do you sense, Robin, that this is one that surprises you, that Puran, after just one season going into the auction where he Phil ticks a lot of boxes. He's now the West Indies captain. He could have easily been a captaincy option if they were going to put Williamson in. They would have still been left with 32 or 33 crore, which would put them in the top remaining purses along with Punjab. Are you surprised at the Pooran release, or do you understand it?
Not really. I think because of his lack of performance in the last year, unfortunately for him, he finds himself in the release list. But I definitely think that he would be one of the guys that if they get the players that they want out of the auction, which is why I think they've gone so cash rich and released so many players, I
Yeah.
definitely think they look to buy back Puran at a lower price.
All right, fair enough. Let's move on from the Sunrisers. Punjab Kings, always a fascinating franchise to discuss ahead of an auction. New setup, new coach with Trevor Bayliss there, and of course, new captain with Shikhar Dhawan. Mayank Agarwal goes straight into the auction, and that's the big news. They'd retained Mayank and Arshdeep as their only two players ahead of the big auction last time. If not as many releases tells you they're quite happy with their squad. It's a pretty strong squad, Wasim, where you'll have now with Mayank's absence, you'll probably have Dhawan along with Bairstow as your opening combination. Possibly Rajapaksa at 3 and Livingston at 4. That takes care of a lot of things. Rabada, there already is a lot of sure shot overseas players in that team. Shah Rukh Khan is the interesting one, Wasim, as we look at their squad. 9 crore. They could have released that 9 crore and opened up an even bigger purse, gone into the big league. Shah Rukh Khan had a disappointing campaign, even was out of the team towards the end of the season. They played Jitesh Sharma with an excellent season. Are you surprised that Shah Rukh Khan has been retained, and what's your reading of that?
Well, I think it did surprise me. He's been there for a couple of years, but he didn't played a lot of games. He's played few and then he's been dropped, and he's not been batting at one particular position as well. So I don't know what happened there. But this team looks strong. We did the IPL last season. We were surprised with the result they've got. It's an exciting team.
Yes.
All they need is probably somebody, a calming influence, because they all are volcanic like batsmen, everyone. So they need somebody to because we have seen Rabada and all the tail enders batting in over number 15, 16. So either they get 220 or they get out for 140. So they probably need a middle order who takes the inning into deep into the innings and makes consistently 180. But they are some exciting players. There's no doubt about it. I'm surprised that they're releasing Vaibhav Arora. I mean,
Yeah.
he's
Yeah.
somebody who did well. Somebody who's an Indian bowler who bowls really well with the new balls. So I'm surprised they released him. Other than that, I'm not really surprised, to be honest. I think they still believe that Shah Rukh Khan can do a job. You don't have many Indian batters who can bat at 5, 6, and 7 and score runs. You don't have many choices there, and he's won Tamil Nadu couple of trophies on his own. So there's still potential which he hasn't realized yet. But I'm sure he can do that. With uh, probably the franchise backing him, I'm sure he'll come good with the new management.
Nine crore is the question, I guess, Robin, here, and whether Shah Rukh, if he would have gone into this auction, would have fetched that price.
I reckon he would have fed something close to that because I think a lot of franchises would be interested in someone like Shah Rukh Khan because
Right.
he's one of the potential finishers for the future of India, and it's about getting the best out of a player like him. He's a match winner in domestic cricket for sure, and he's done that for Tamil Nadu in the recent years. He's won tournaments for them single-handedly while batting in the death. So and he can be a fairly handy off spinner as well. So with him, I reckon if he went back into the auction, he would have gone for a good price as well. And knowing that they have Trevor Bayliss there as a coach there, that someone like and having worked with Trevor, I know for a fact that someone like Shah Rukh would get a longer run
Yeah.
at whichever position he's going to bat at, and Trevor's got that calming influence over the entire squad. He's a very calm kind of personality. So I think he's someone who reads things very differently, and I think every coach has a certain way of working through each squad that they have, and I think that there are guys that they want to back, and it's good that an Indian's being backed in
Yeah.
franchise cricket like this, especially the Indian Premier League, because I think he's got the potential to become a match winner for India.
Okay, happy then with Shah Rukh Khan's retention. It looks like Punjab have a lot of bases covered. So with 30 plus crore, they can really bully a lot of players in that auction. Now we know Sam Curran, Cameron Green, Ben Stokes. These are all players that could be in high demand. We of course wait to see if any more big players throw their name in. But these are the three we're all assuming will fetch a serious amount of money. And Mayank Agarwal, of course, has gone into the auction. It's unlikely he'll come back to Punjab Kings. Let's go to our next team, Lucknow Super Giants, who have also given me a surprise or two. I wonder if you'd agree, Wasim, that Jason Holder, somebody they really built their team around, played every game, bowled at the death for them. They love their all-rounders, this team. The other big one they've released is Manish Pandey. Now, keep an eye out for Dushmanta Chamira and Andrew Tye. The fact is that Mark Wood has been retained by the team. Mark Wood was injured last season. They brought in Tye and Chamira. But now that I guess we've seen the best of Wood in the World Cup, albeit he didn't play the finals due to injuries, they have retained Wood, let go of both Tye and Chamira, as well as Evan Lewis and Jason Holder, to give them 23.35 crore. What do you sense they're looking at here, Wasim? Do you think they are likely to get another one of those all-rounders we mentioned, either a Cameron Green or a Ben Stokes for that, and to do Jason Holder's job? Or maybe get Jason Holder for cheaper?
Well, I think, they'll probably are one of the teams which are going to go really hard on Stokes, Karan, and maybe Cameron Green. That is the reason why they probably released Jason Holder. So this is one of the team which needs an all-rounder. So that is probably, I'm surprised they released Holder, and I was surprised when they dropped him in that eliminator as well. But probably that's the reason why, because they've got Cameron Green, maybe Sam Curran, or even Ben Stokes in their eye. So other than that, I feel Chamira also a little bit surprising, because you don't have that kind of pace in the other departments. So I'm surprised at those two release players. Other than that, usual suspect there as well. But I think they need a genuine all-rounder in that side.
Yeah, I'm guessing, Robin, the look at that team, they love their all-round options. They're like 8 or 9 bowling options last year. I'm guessing their thinking is probably, we'll put Holder back in at 875. We'll try and go for Stokes or Cam Green or Curran. If we don't get them, we'll just get Holder back in and around that range. Do you think that's what they're thinking?
Yeah, I think so. But you could also go as in think that they might actually look beyond Jason Holder, because I think Jason Holder had a pretty slim IPL for them in the last season. So I think that was also one of the reasons they possibly released him. But I wouldn't be surprised. They have released Manish Pandey, so I wouldn't be surprised if they go very hard for Mayank Agarwal as a batter at the top order for them. To bat at number 3, because they are looking for a good number 3 batter, and Manish Pandey hadn't delivered for them last year. So I wouldn't be surprised if they go very hard, knowing KL Rahul and how much Mayank and KL have played together and batted together. I wouldn't be surprised if they actually go for Mayank.
Mayank, interesting. But what about De Kock then, Robbie? Rahul and De Kock and Mayank 3, like he's batted for Punjab.
Yeah, Mayank 3, I think. Yeah, Mayank 3. And then they have Deepak Hooda, and then Ayush Badoni, and then someone in the middle order. You have Marcus Stoinis in the middle order as well. Who was underused last year. So as a backup opener, you have Manan Bora there. But you have some quality middle order batsmen within that group. So I feel like they will definitely look to go for one of the big all rounders. With Sam and Stokes and what's his name?
Cam Green. Yeah, Cam Green.
Cam Green. Yeah.
Fair enough.
So
it's still
one of the 3.
Make your 11 with, to be honest. So it's not like you're struggling to make an 11. A lot of overseas players go into that team. You've got De Kock, you've got Stoinis, Mark Wood, if he's fit. That's 3 sorted there. Now the Jason Holder position is probably the one they'll be looking to fill. Okay.
Yeah, they would back themselves to try and get one of that, and then besides that, they'll again, I think, look to get another fast bowler just to back up Mark Wood.
Yeah. You can see Robin's point here. The Indian batter you're looking for that solid Indian batter after KL Rahul. If you're looking at Deepak Hooda, that's pretty much it. So, okay, fair enough. Let's go to our next team, Delhi Capitals. Interesting business before the trade retention date was announced, where Shardul Thakur has been traded to KKR. That is just the big news. Other than that, I think we can understand some of the others: Seifert, Mandeep Singh, KS Bharat, Ashwin Hebar. But Thakur at 1075 release. Now, you look at that team, it's an interesting one, Wasim, in terms of what the role for Shardul Thakur was last year. He started as an opening bowler and didn't always bowl his full quota of 4. Yet, this is a team which was moving around Lalit Yadav and Sarfaraz Khan, trying to identify that one Indian batter. Now, with Shardul's absence, Do they already have those bases covered with Kamlesh Nagarkoti or Chetan Sakaria? Or essentially, are they looking for, they need to find some key Indian players? And there are not a lot of options in terms of Indian players in this auction. Thoughts on Shardul's release?
Well, I think he'll probably do the job which he was doing at CSK. Probably that will suit him at KKR because he was bowling with the new ball, and that's not his preferred place. He was somebody who bowled 1 over in the power play and then middle overs and in the death. MS Dhoni used him really well at CSK, and he was doing a totally different role at DC. So he'll probably do a similar kind of role, probably expecting at KKR. But yeah, I mean, Delhi need to strengthen that department. They need that all-rounders or somebody who bowls well because they missed Anjik Nokia. Anjik Nokia wasn't the best, last season. So they need that department filled with the new ball. Other than that, I feel they are pretty, balanced side, Delhi Capitals.
Okay, if you look at that squad that they do have in Shardul's absence, Robin, I wonder if you can sort of pick their four overseas and they're sorted because you got Warner, you got Mitchell Marsh. I'm assuming Anrik Nokke will be your first choice overseas seamer. Now you either go, if you're playing Rovman Powell, that lets you play only one overseas seamer. So Ngidi and Mustafizur are essentially reserve seamers. Or are you saying no, Rovman Powell is not a certainty, in which case you can play two overseas seamers, but there's a middle order that's slightly questionable there because you'll have Warner, Prithvi Shaw, Mitchell Marsh, Rishabh Pant. After that is where the problems began for Delhi last year, where Lalit Yadav wasn't quite nailing that number 5 spot. Akshar Patel was probably batting one position too high. It's a tough area to fill 5, 6, 7, especially if you need Indians. And it does look like Delhi will have to get an Indian looking at the overseas guys that already walk into this team.
Raunak, don't count out Yash Dul. Yash Dul has performed exceptionally well in domestic cricket this year, and I think he's a player. He's a youngster to watch out for. He is exceptionally talented, and I think he's someone who's going to do really well for Delhi. And he's grown a lot in confidence. So I think he'll fit into that middle order there somewhere, or the top order there somewhere. But after that, I feel Rovman Powell will probably be the initial option because he brings in that kind of firepower that Andre Russell does. Not with the ball, but definitely with the bat. So they like Rovman Powell there. So I definitely think that they will stick with Rovman Powell there. And then in case, they want to, the other backup opener, backup fast bowler, Mustafizur and Lungi Ngidi, if they want to change up with Anrik Nokia or give him a break, they might use him there. So they have a pretty decent Indian fast bowling lineup as well. They have Chetan Sakaria there. If I'm not wrong, I saw somebody else, a couple of other decent fast
Nagarkoti
bowlers.
is there, Sakaria is there, Khalil had a really good, Khalil had a great season.
And Khalil's bowled pretty well this year as well for them, and they depend a little bit on Lalit Yadav to play that Indian finishers role there for them. So Ripal Patel and Lalit Yadav are those blokes that they look at in that lower middle order. So I think that's what the first 12, 13 will entail, and then I think they'll just mix it around with that.
Wasim, very quickly before you leave us, I wonder if you could just tell me on the trade for Aman Khan. I mean, why would you want to trade him? How does he help this Delhi team? He could have easily gone into the auction. Robbie's got a smile.
I don't know. I mean, he's somebody who he surprised me, to be honest, because he's somebody who bats, top of the order for Mumbai, or he even bats at 5 and 6. He hasn't got a spot fixed, and he's a medium pacer who bowls 1 or 2 overs. You don't trust him with more than 1 or maybe 2 overs. So I was surprised, first of all. He played a couple of games, but he's not somebody who would be keen. I mean, at the start of the tournament, that you'll play him at the 11 at the start. So I was a little surprised. But talking about Delhi Capitals, I feel that Sarfaraz Khan. I mean, we talked about David Warner, Prithvi Shaw, and then Mitchell Marsh and Pant. But probably Sarfaraz Khan, they could probably play him at 3, and then Mitchell Marsh and Rishabh Pant can bat at 4 and 5, and they have to fix that number 6 spot, because then you've got Akshar Patel at 7, and then you are sorted after that. But that's the number 6 spot. If you are not playing Rovman Powell, then that's the spot you need to fill. So I feel Sarfaraz Khan, they need to promote a little bit. I feel he's a pretty damn good player at number 3. He's wasted when he's batting at 5 and 6. I don't think he possesses the same power for a finisher. But at number 3, he can do a job, and with Rishabh Pant and Mitchell Marsh, they can
Yeah.
probably do a better job at 4 and 5.
Okay.
But
Interesting.
Wasim bhai, a
Yeah.
question from me. Do you think Rishabh Pant will be successful at number 4 and 5 in T20 cricket?
I, I mean, he hasn't been consistent for sure, but that's where he needs to play because he's not opening for India. So he needs to get better. That is the spot he'll play. I mean, ideally, I would play him at 1, 2, 3, but that spot is
Right,
not empty. So he needs
right.
to get better batting at number 5.
Okay, simple as that. Let's go to the Gujarat Titans very quickly and have a look at the champions and what they've done. Now, you might be very surprised at that Lockie Ferguson release, right? He's gone to KKR. They paid big money for Lockie at 10 crore. Interestingly, they used him with great impact in the early parts of the season, but there were enough times, including towards the playoffs, when they went with Alzari Joseph ahead of them. Now, Gurbaz has also gone to KKR, who've done most of their business before the auction. They'll have very little to go into play with once the 23rd of December is upon us. But let me ask Wasim this. Wasim, Lockie Ferguson. Now, the IPL going back to home
Very,
venues
very,
at a Ahmedabad. Yeah, just take me through that
yeah.
and what Gujarat have done here. Do you think this is a smart move, letting go of Lockie?
No, not really. I mean, Lockie Ferguson, I would have kept him, to be honest. And even Rahmanullah Gurbaz, he is an exciting player. You know how much I like him. I've told you in the Asia Cup. And I was surprised they released him because they actually wanted an opener wicket keeper because Matthew Wade didn't had a great season. And
Yeah.
obviously he's not a spring chicken anymore. So Rahmanullah Gurbaz will be, a long-term option. So I was surprised that him, being traded off, and so is Lockie Ferguson because he's a good player. He's a hot and cold, but on his good days, he gives you 20 for 3 most times. So I'm surprised at those two trade options.
Yeah, because there's two things here. Both the keeper options they have, Robin, Saha and Wade, they're on the wrong side of 30. You're trying to think of whether they are going to play regularly in your team in an IPL. Saha had a great impact for them last season. So Gurbaz's release is one question. The other is, what are they looking to do? There's a lot of bases that are already filled because they'll have a lot of the players that played in the 11 available this year. So in a 19 crore purse remaining, which is not necessarily a big purse, but are they really going to go all out for, say, one player and try and get, maybe a Cameron Green to come in and open the batting at the top of the order, which kind of takes care of a lot of other question marks they have?
Yeah, possibly. I think that they would look at someone like Cameron Green because he's a youngster as well, and will play at the top of the order at number 3, perhaps for them. I definitely think that Ridhiman Saha and Shubman Gill will continue to open the batting for them. Both of them have done exceptionally well. So why fix something that's not broken? Give them another season and see how it goes. Because he may be on the wrong side of 30, but he's an extremely fit wicketkeeper bat is Ridhiman Saha. So I think that the opening pair in a sense is set for me. Having said that, that number 3 position for someone who can bowl and in the likes of Cam Green would be a great pick for them. So I definitely think that he is someone that they would be looking to go after. I'm also pretty surprised that they let go of Lockie Ferguson.
Yeah.
I think Lockie Ferguson's perhaps second best preferred team was KKR. And I think maybe perhaps the option was given to him as to would he like to go back into the auction or be traded, and maybe he chose to be traded, and that's what that's what entailed that whole move. Um, and yeah,
All
isn't
right.
I think otherwise I think it looks like a pretty settled side for me is Gujarat
Okay. Yeah.
Titans. Yeah.
Fair enough. Fair enough. Thank you so much for that. All right, Wasim, thank you for your time and your thoughts. We're going to have you back a little later for our Hindi coverage, but always a pleasure chatting with you. So we'll talk to you again soon, Wasim Jaffer. Right. We're going to wrap up the remaining three teams with Robin. So Titans done. It still looks like a similar team to what we had last time. Let's go to the Rajasthan Royals next up. Again, the team that made the final, Robin, that seemed to have most of their first choice players intact. They picked up these four guys literally at the fag end of the auction last time at base price. Daryl
Yeah.
Mitchell, James Neesham, Coulter Nile, Van der Dusen, all of them go back. So there are lots of overseas
Mm,
slots available. There's not a lot of
mm,
money available. I'm just trying to think whether
mm.
any of them could have been serviceable for another year. We didn't see a lot of Van der Dusen, we didn't see a lot of Mitchell or Neesham.
Yeah, sometimes there's not a lot of foresight in what they do, Rajasthan Royals. It is, they could have definitely used one of these guys and just kept them as backup players, because it's not like they would
Yeah,
have lost a lot of money, right? Uh, so like when you release, like you pick these guys up at base price, and they're high quality players. Rasi Van der Dusen's on very high quality players. Yeah,
yeah,
you at least want to keep them for one more season, and provided he's fit, and he was going to be fit, and looks like he's on course to being fit as well. So I would have definitely kept him. Having said that, their squad also looks pretty set with the
yeah.
opening batters. Sanju Samson, Yashasvi Jaiswal's done really well there. Hetmeyer's done well for them. Devdutt Padikkal's done. He's got a few health issues, but I'm hoping Devdutt Padikkal can overcome all of those by the time the IPL comes around. Joss Butler, the World Cup winning captain. Jurel, I haven't seen much of him. Riyan Parag, they continue to back him. Prasidh Krishna, Trent Bolt,
Yeah,
Obed
I
McCoy
mean,
is again someone.
yeah, a lot of these guys were pretty much, you can pick that 11, but they had that one spot, Robbie, where they were sometimes even struggling to fill their overseas quota, and they eventually
Yeah,
used to play Kuldeep Sen or play Karun Nair as the
yeah,
extra Indian and go with three overseas. So with
that's
that
right.
balance first, can they really sort of? I don't think they can bully anybody and get a
No, but
big
they'll just make a
overseas
hard
player.
push.
What are they
They'll make a
looking for?
hard push.
Hmm.
They'll probably look at the likes of Jason Holder, perhaps. They'll
Yeah.
probably
Okay.
look at Dushmanta Chamira. They'll probably look at an like a what is this Romario Shepherd. They would
Yeah.
definitely look at the likes of those guys who can bowl fast and who can bat a little bit. I think those are the guys that Chris Jordan, another good interesting pick, could be him
Yeah. Sure.
for RR. So these are the guys that they look at. In if not, and I doubt they can actually bully the auctions with the kind of purse that they have. But they'll definitely look at these other guys who will probably fly under the radar, like Chris Jordan,
Hmm.
Dushmanta Chamira. I think these are the Jason Holder. These are the guys that they can actually probably go for and push
All
for
right.
and pick.
Interesting. Interesting. Okay, let's wrap up with RCB and KKR. Let's take Bangalore first. Now, these are two
Mhm.
teams that are going to do very little work at the auction. We think they're just going to come and chill and watch the others have a crack. Berendorf was traded, and that
Mhm.
doesn't really surprise a lot of us. He didn't play a lot for RCB, and you look at their team, you know that Faf is captain, so that's one overseas slot. Glenn Maxwell's the other, and between Vanindu Asaranga and Josh Hazelwood, you've sorted out your overseas four. So you look at that team,
Yeah.
Robbie, you've got somebody like Finn Allen. What a great backup to have after this World Cup.
Oh
They've
yeah,
retained
beautiful.
David
Yeah.
Willey. So that's pretty much a sorted team. Patidar was a replacement player. I don't think he's going anywhere now.
Not for
Virat
the next
Kohli,
5 years.
yeah, Siraj there. So I guess very solid team and most of the work, most of the business done well before the auction.
Yeah, 100%. I think and knowing Faf as a person, you know that he likes to keep his unit together, and he's not going to make too many changes as a leader. And then he's just looking to see if he can get some backup bowlers, perhaps just in case there's an injury of sorts or someone withdraws from the IPL, with the big Ashes coming up next year. So we can see a few guys backing out of the IPL for that reason. So you want to keep a little bit of purse to just have some backup fast bowlers, so just in case Josh Hazelwood decides not to come
Yeah.
owing to the Ashes, then you want to have something to be able to pick up a good fast bowler to replace someone like him for them.
Yeah, an overseas fast bowler that you think if you just have to pick one slot, that 875 is pretty good. If you just need to pick up one
Yeah,
overseas
one slot.
fast
Yeah,
bowler, would you at all
yeah.
be looking at a leadership sort of candidate with Faf also at 38? Of course, fit as they come, still scoring runs. But I mean,
Hmm.
Kane Williams is going to be at this in this auction. Would you at all be tempted to get somebody like that as just another leadership option in case they have to think about life after Faf?
No, I don't think they'll be looking at anyone beyond Faf at the moment. I think at least for the next 2 years, I don't think they'll be looking at anyone beyond Faf. I think if anything, if Faf is not fit, then there's always Glenn Maxwell, who can lead, Virat Kohli, who can lead in their absence. So they have a bunch of leaders within that group. So I think they should be fine. I don't think they're looking for a replacement or a looking ahead kind of leader.
All right, I think that's pretty much sorted. That's a very good squad. So no real surprises there. Let's finally look at KKR. I'm very interested with this, Robin, because I'm what have they done here? Why have they gone for such big money trades, right? Because Lockie Ferguson at about 10 crore or 9 crore. You have Shardul Thakur at 1075, who's going to come in. We're going to come to those in a second. Let's look at everyone who's released. Yeah, let me bring that list up. Pat Cummins has announced his unavailability for the IPL. So too has Sam
Mm,
Billings. So a couple of overseas slots opened up over there. Some big names, even though not necessarily big IPL players in that release list, because no Ajinkya Rahane in that. Mohammad Nabi, the Afghanistan captain, also released. Now, if you look at that team, they've gotten Shardul, they've gotten They've gotten Lockie Ferguson. Gurbaz has come in. That gives them just 7 crore as a purse. Now, I'm trying to think of whether they were just, and you look at that squad size, Robbie, that's what, 5, 10, 13, right? So you
Yeah.
have 12
Who's
slots
going to open
available.
the batting for them?
So
That's my first
I'm
question.
guessing Venkatesh Iyer will go
Gurbaz.
back at the top and
Yeah, I
Gurbaz with
think
him.
Gurbaz and
That's how
Venkatesh
it
Iyer will
will roll.
possibly open. Shreyas Iyer at number 3, Nitish Rana at number 4.
Yeah.
They'll have to
You got
find a number
Russell.
5. Then you have
Yeah.
Russell at 6. You have Sunil Narayan at 7. Shardul Thakur, Lockie Ferguson, Umesh Yadav, Tim Saudi, Varun
And
Chakravarti. That's what it looks like right now.
so again, I'm just
Um,
trying to think why they would make two really big trades, right? In Shardul and Lockheed. That's like 20 crore right there. Whether they would have, hedged their bets going into an auction. And if you remember last year's auction, Robbie, they had a very funny auction, right? They nearly bust their purse out very early. I'm just trying to
mm.
think of whether they just, with a new coach there in Chandu Pandit, whether they just feel like they would rather just get all their pieces in place before the auction, with sort of the kind of history that they've had.
It's strange for me the omission of or release of Rinku Singh, someone that they backed so much, who finally
They
came
played
good in
well.
the last season.
Yeah, yeah, yeah,
Uh, won them a few games as well, even the previous season to that. And suddenly he's not there in the side. And there's one of those guys who was backed to the hilt by KKR, and he's not there anymore with them. It's just strange for me, that omission. I think. I don't know. As in, they don't necessarily have backup Indian batters, which is a worry.
yeah.
And after all that trading and after all the players they've released, they've left with 7 crores. So I don't know what they're going to do in the auction. It's going to be a hit and miss kind of auction for them. So they're going to find themselves between a rock and a hard place. Yeah,
Yeah, it
they
looks
got to be really lucky for everything to kind of go their
absolutely,
way.
absolutely. Just look at that, and you'll get the point. Robin Uthappa making. Rinku came into that team, won them a couple of games, played some cameos. It is a surprise that Rinku is not part of the KKR setup right now, but we'll see whether that fetches him a good price, or maybe they look to buy him back at the auction with this balance. It wasn't like Rinku was occupying a large part of their purse, so it is one
Yeah.
that does baffle us a bit. 55 lakhs is what he went for, Rinku Singh. The last thing I want to ask you on KKR is, I think Lockie Ferguson, we know, is class, and he would be, but at the Eden Gardens, is Shardul Thakur ideally suited to go to the Eden Gardens, for instance? That's a tough place to bowl. Just trying to think of
Yeah.
whether KKR have made a wise call here by getting Shardul. Could they have possibly got a Shardul in an auction for less than 1075?
Uh, well, with the auctions, you can never tell, Raunak. And it's so haphazard. You can never really tell, what's going to happen in an auction. You can maybe guess that you could buy him a little cheaper, but I guess, see, the thing is, Shardul's biggest USP is the fact that he picks up wickets. He's got this uncanny ability to pick up wickets, irrespective of whether he gives away runs or not. And he's got the ability to bat as well. He can bat pretty well at the lower middle order. So, and I think with Chandu Pandit and Shreyas Iyer at the helm, obviously they're backing a Bombay boy to do the job for them in the death overs at Eden Gardens. We'll only have to wait and watch how successful he's going to be there. It's not like he's going to be playing in at big grounds, and he's not the quickest guy in the shop. He can bowl high 130s, early 140s, but he won't intimidate you with pace, so to speak. And at those small grounds, you want him to be successful and get wickets for you. If he's not going to get wickets for you, then it's going to pay you. It's going to cost you a little dear, I reckon.
Yeah. I think. Sorry about that. I think Rinku Singh has been retained. So there we have it.
Oh, he
Yeah,
has
just
been retained. Oh, okay, okay.
there's a little
Because
spot
that
mistake.
surprised me, honestly.
Okay, cancel all of that. Rinku's in. No
Okay,
one,
good.
no one.
He's
But
yeah.
apparently,
So
it's not. There was some confusion around him. I think the franchise must have missed his poor name out. So here we go.
perhaps, yeah. So because he's been such an important, like, part of that team,
Yeah.
and he definitely should kind of walk into that kind of backup position at least. And to not find him in that position is quite surprising for
Yeah,
me.
he's there. He's there. Don't worry, Rinku
I'm
fans.
glad
Take
he's
care.
there. Good,
Yeah, don't worry
good.
about him. Rinku's
Ringo's
around.
there.
Hopefully, he'll start. Now, while Shardul will find himself in the company of Shreyas Iyer and Chandrakant Pandit and Abhishek Nair, all of whom are Bombay boys, no support for the other Bombay boy. Ajinkya Rahane released Robbie from KKR. Do you see him getting a franchise at this auction?
See, he's had a pretty lean T20I, Mushtaq Ali. Sorry, T20. His Mushtaq Ali was a pretty lean one, although his team won. He didn't really score too many runs, so I think that might cost him a little bit, to be honest. And I hope he gets a side genuinely because he's a high quality player. But someone like RR may just pick him back, at base price perhaps. Depends on what his base price is also going to be, because the players are in control of how much they can, based on what they feel at the point in time on how well they're playing. They could possibly just set a lower base price because it's a smaller auction, just so that they can get to be a part of a side and perhaps get a few games to play.
All right, that is pretty much it. Okay, Rob, if I'm going to ask you to sort of speculate here, who do you think will be the most expensive buyer at this auction? Indian. I think Mayank Agarwal is surely going to be the most expensive Indian player.
Uh, Not necessarily. There's one more on that list that I thought would probably go for a few.
Manish Pandey is the other experienced batter, but Mayank and Manish.
Manish Pandey. Yeah, as in I can't see anybody else there.
And what about if there are there any shock releases here? Are you thinking that Puran was a shock, or Williamson was a shock, or Lockie Ferguson being released was a shock?
So I
Shardul?
think Kane Williamson was counterintuitive, as in when you look at the kind of personnel they had with them and the options they had to that they could release and keep last year. I think SRH missed a trick by not keeping Rashid Khan as their first
Yeah, sure.
retained player in the mega auction last year. That was a no-brainer. And you could have actually put Williamson back in the auction and got him back for probably 12 or
A lot
13
less.
crores,
Yeah, a lot less.
yeah,
Yeah, yeah.
so you would have probably gotten. They missed a trick there, and I think that this is just being reactive. This is not They're not
Hmm.
responding to a situation. So either they're moving away from him completely, or they'll pick somebody else and then buy him back for a lower price if they don't get the biggest picks. And I think which is why they've gone really cash rich in this auction, released a lot of players so that they can kind of bully the auction.
All right. Thank you so much, Robin. That was fun. Just scanning through those teams, just refreshing our IPL memory. And it's fun. It's fun analyzing what teams do, right? I love your Rajasthan Royals analysis. I think that's my awesome. All right.
but
Thanks so
but you have
much.
you have to understand that these auctions are very haphazard. It can go anybody's way.
Yeah, yeah. Okay, more when the auction comes our way in Kochi on the 23rd of December. Robin Uthappa, thank you so much for your time and your thoughts on retention day, with the teams and the franchises announcing who's going to be part of their IPL 2023 and who goes into the auction. More coverage, of course, on ESPN Cricket Info.